What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the For the Love podcast, presented to you by the Love of Ball Network and brought to you by your host, Gavin, today. So today we have a fun one lined up. We will be joined by OKC underscore Will to win on Instagram, also known as Will, the OKC guy, and Thomas, the Denver fan. We're going to be going over the Nuggets versus Thunder series. Not not much else to introduce. It's really fun. It's about an hour long. Super good. We got debates, we have breakdowns, and even a little future plans about both of them. So it's a really good one. I think you guys will love it. And let's lob it up. All right, welcome Thomas and Will to the show. Thomas, the Nuggets fan, and Will at OKC underscore Will to win. Man, what a series it's been, huh? What a series.
Say that.
Thomas, I will let you go first. Initial reactions. Game 3 happened last night for Nuggets versus Thunder. Go ahead. What are your reactions for the series so far?
All right, so as my mother can attest to this, I said going in we might get swept. I am over the moon right now. Because here's my thing, and what I'm realizing, and I've realized the error of my ways. When it comes down to the playoffs, if you have won before, you in fact are more likely to win again. And what I am just seeing is just this pedigree of this team that just has this will to win. We don't need a coach. We don't need a coach that is an X's and O's guy. We don't need, we don't need a Greg Popovich leading a 2002 Spurs. All that I need is we needed a vibes guy. Michael Malone had the vibes were awful. That everybody was like, well, this team's gonna be a first or second round exit. We got nothing going on. David Adelman, regardless of anything that has happened, obviously he, and we can also talk about this later. The rotations that he has put together and the groups that he has put together have been productive, actually. But simply off the fact that we now have a team that is working together, I'm really happy.
Yeah, it seems like David Adelman is really the assistant coach, and the real coach is Jokic, number 15, on the floor. It's so funny watching the games. He'll listen to Jokic. He'll go to Jokic, be like, "Hey, what should we do here?" And then he'll tell everyone else what Jokic said. So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. Will, give me your reaction, your first reaction here.
Yeah, so obviously this is not the kind of state I wanted to be in today. I'm being down 2-1 in the series. I'm going to go back to something you said, Thomas, and that was that you went into the series thinking you were going to get swept. I went into the series thinking this was going to go 6 or 7, first off. But I'm going to say right now, if we're looking at, I don't remember the stats off the top of my head, but if we're looking at straight gameplay, 48-minute games, the Thunder should be up 3-0 right now. The Thunder should be up 3-0 right now. Denver has not won one game this series. Oklahoma City has lost 2. Okay? Throughout these 3 games, the Thunder have been the better team, and a point I'm going to go to again and again today is that the Thunder, you're right, I think experience has to do with some of it, and in closing situations, they have not been able to get it done. And that's the reason they've lost. They played the better games. They put themselves in a position to win. They cannot get it done, and if they're not going to figure it out, this is going to be a long series or potentially a short one, because if we don't figure out how to close late game situations, we're going to lose this round. That's my baseline thoughts, and I can get more into it as we go, and I'm sure I will. But that's how I feel right now.
So an interesting point you brought up is that the Nuggets didn't win. The Thunder lost. I'm going to be more of like a median here. I'm listening to your points, nodding my head, shaking, just agreeing. Thomas, I saw you have a little reaction to that. What do you tell me what you think about that?
So game 1, I can appreciate that. I do believe throughout that game we were thoroughly outplayed. Obviously, so that was the same day as Celtics Knicks game 1. That comeback got overshadowed anything the Nuggets did. but the Nuggets were at points throughout the fourth quarter down by double digits. I think the biggest thing for me is that, again, you inherently can't have, one or the other. It's both. The Nuggets came to play when the Thunder didn't. It doesn't matter. Did we, there's the old coach speak. Do we win in the first quarter? No. Do we win in the second quarter, third quarter, etc.? But we won in the fourth quarter, and that's what mattered. The Thunder couldn't perform when it mattered. And the Nuggets did, and that's what winning basketball looks like.
So looking in this most recent game, it was pretty close the entire game. A 6-point differential, and then five, and then a 1 point, then a 2 point, then a 3 point, all the quarters. Going into this game, it kind of felt like this was a turning point for either one of the teams. You saw a very close win in game one, where I do agree with Will here. I think the Thunder should have won game one, and Aaron Gordon happened. Game two, they came out saying, here's what should happen, and they beat them by what seemed like a million. And then game three, to me, seemed like a real tone setter, that this is both teams wanted to come out and prove a point, and it just happened to go the Nuggets' way. It was a super close game. I told Thomas pre-show I was unable to watch this game. I was score watching. So I'm going to rely on you guys for the most recent game. But let's start with game one. Nuggets win 121-119. Obviously, Aaron Gordon, game winner. Thomas, what are your takeaways from this game?
All right, so game one, the biggest thing for me coming out of it, I felt really good about what would happen with Jokic going forward. Obviously, we'll get into game three and his struggles. We'll get into that. But going into that, I was concerned about the combination of Chet and Ihart. There was a concern about these double big lineups. We've seen it in the past that the Nuggets have struggled against teams that can put up, these double big lineups. Be it, the Warriors when they would put Draymond at the 4, or the Wolves last year with both Cat and Rudy. So that was my major concern going into the series. But the biggest takeaway for me was Jokic. Okay, Jokic can do this, because the Thunder were obsessed with putting Caruso on him for some reason. They really were like, this switch is going to work. And then it didn't. So that was the biggest confidence booster, I think, for me coming out of that game.
Yeah, Will, you guys also feel free to respond to whatever you want. You don't have to wait for me to cue you.
Yeah. Well, I think my overarching thoughts on game one were that it was the most devastating collapse I've seen in a fourth quarter as a Thunder fan in my entire life. We're looking at 13 seconds left in the game. Okay, we can put aside different analytical things back and forth. Those got worked out in game two, and we can get to game three as we go. But the whole entire game, sure, the Thunder were not producing as good of shots as they should have been. They were hitting some shots. They had control. They weren't playing the best game ever, but they had control, and it wasn't a game you felt like we were going to lose. You did it. You had that feeling, and you thought we were going to come out and take game one. And I just never seen as bad of a coaching decision as I've seen in those last 13 plus seconds in that game, in which the Thunder just fouled up 13 seconds left, up 3. With how many times were they going to go through that situation over and over and over again? We're going to go through it 20 times and bet on our free throw shooting over the best defense in basketball, one of the best defenses in NBA history. You're going to bet on our free throw shooting over that. It is ridiculous and disgusting, and it's mind-boggling because we should have gone into Denver up 2-0 and could have afforded a Game 3 loss. And now all of a sudden we're staring at a hole in which I posted this on my account, a post about how does this shot, the Aaron Gordon shot, compare with other shots that have happened. I know we've had our fair share of big-time shots against us in OKC. But where does it rank? If we don't come out on top of the series, let's say I don't think we're going to go out in 5. We go out in 6 or 7. We're going to take one at some point. Okay, that shot I think is going to be in my mind, number one, because this is the best team we've ever had. And to start a series like that is devastating. So that's my obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. I was comparing this, just like contextualizing the Gordon shot for myself too, and thinking about the history of the Nuggets and the Thunder. I don't know how far back your Thunder fandom goes, but what is higher or more sharp for you? The joy of the Russell Westbrook game winner to send you guys to the playoffs, or the despair from that Gordon shot?
I think those are two very different situations. I wouldn't compare them necessarily because I think the stakes, if we're talking about championship stakes right now, they're a lot higher than they were then. Obviously, we're going that season. We're going into those playoffs. We were going to be the 6th seed. And, we thought, whatever. Russ could take us past the first round, maybe second, but no, we didn't really think that was a year for championship whatsoever. That was more of a celebration of Russell Westbrook and the things he accomplished that season in that moment. And that was, I think that's the most jubilation I've experienced as a Thunder fan, probably in that moment, which in a way is kind of sad because we haven't reached, the mountaintop yet. But in a way, it's also amazing, too, that we got to experience that. And we've overall been really blessed as a franchise. So it's important to not get bogged down in these moments like Game 1 and just keep believing in what Sam Presti and this organization has produced and put forward. But then again, it doesn't take away from how devastating, like you said. It was extremely devastating for sure.
So another thing I wanted to talk about with that fouling, it's not even that you were fouling up 3, because the numbers say, I think it's 85% of the time when you foul up 3, you win the game. Mm-hmm. You were fouling instantly. It like as soon as the ball was passed in, it was instant. That defeats the whole purpose of fouling. The whole purpose of fouling is bleeding off clock and not letting them get a 3. So it was just mind-boggling.
Yeah, and the we can put aside the different 2 or 3 times we did it. Okay, the one time I can't remember who threw the ball in, but Nuggets had 0 timeouts left. Okay, they had 10 seconds.
I know.
They were at the opposite end of their court. Okay, Jokic was on the sideline. He was not in the game. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna let some random Nuggets player who has been shooting well all game long take a contested 3 at the buzzer? Whatever. We can let that happen. Trust your defense. Jokic is out of the game. Why are we fouling? Why are we fouling on the opposite end of the court? It makes 0 sense, and that's the worst coaching decision. And the fact that Mark Dagnall doubled down on it as well in the press conference. Mark Dagnall is an incredible coach. He is probably my favorite coach in Thunder history. I think I could go that far at this point because I love the way he approaches the game. But I've said all along, what's going to kill him is if in late game playoff situations he approaches the game too analytically in his mind and not just let basketball play out. Basketball is more than analytics and stats and the metrics of what you do. That basketball is not fouling up 3 with 13 seconds. That's not basketball. That is a disgrace to basketball, and he's got to change the way he thinks in those situations.
It's similar to Joe Mazzulla with the Mazzulla ball, where we saw I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago the Celtics collapse in the 4th, where no matter what the Celtics were up, I think like 13 or 14. He's like, we still got it. We got to chuck 3s. First open 3 we're chucking. We got to get to 60 3s because analytics say. So I understand these analytical coaches, and it's weird that 2 of the top 2 seeds on each side have these analytical approaches, and you see that. But then the other top 2 seeds in each conference, being the Rockets and the Cavs, both have vibes coach that kind of just coach for vibes. So it's interesting to see how both coaching styles can kind of get you to the top. Do either of you have anything else on Game 1?
I have 2 more things.
Yeah.
So one is a question for both of you. Does this do anything to the national perception on fouling up 3?
I hope so. I hate it.
Well, yeah, I think we all do. It was 5 minutes. The last like 30 seconds was 5 minutes.
I think in the situation that you normally see it when a team is up 3 with like 2 or 1 second left, no, because I think that's a good strategy. But in the context, I've never seen this happen with this much time left, so I don't think that'll ever happen again unless it's Mark Dagnall. Which if that happens, I might lose my mind if that happens again.
Yeah, similar to that. I remember the free throws at the end of the game as a whole is just so crazy to me. I have a vivid memory. Okay, Tuesday night. It's a school night for me. I'm a junior in high school at this point. This is 2-3 years ago. The end of the game. It's a West Coast game for me. I'm on the East Coast, so it is 11:30 at night. The end of the game, last 8 minutes, took 45 minutes for the rest of the game, and I was like, I woke up exhausted. I'm like, man, why did I stay up for that? I didn't even see a game winner. Like, it's just the whole free throws at the end of the game is such a negative viewing experience. You would think something would happen, like, because Adam Silva has been very, very, very like fan oriented in a lot of his movements. So just seeing that free throws are taking away a lot of iconic moments of what seems like at the end of the game is just interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. And then my last comment for game one, and I saw this somewhere else. I don't remember where I saw it, so I can't fully take credit for this, but I 100% agree. There are two wolves inside of Russell Westbrook on the last play of the game. Will had Russell Westbrook on his team for what, 7-8 years?
Gosh, it was 2008 when he came. Well, basically when we started out, so it would have been through 2019, like 11-ish years.
Okay,
Wow.
So you experienced Russell Westbrook for 11 years. There's a Russell Westbrook that even against two defenders drives to the rim and tries to win, and tries to take it himself. But I feel like the maturation of Russell Westbrook was so signified by the pass off to Aaron Gordon that it feels like a different Russell Westbrook now.
I'd say more mature in that regard, to where he's got an awareness of that he's not the same physically as he used to be. He's not going to be able to rise up and get an athletic bucket at the rim like he used to. But this series, it's been kind of fun, but also kind of sad and scary in a way to see the same Russell Westbrook in my mind, the one who's going to try to fire everyone up. And it's sad to see that on our home court, antagonizing our players and fans, which I respect it. That's the Westbrook I know and love, so I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything about it. But it's hard to play against him because and he is the same Westbrook in my mind.
Yeah, so let's move into game two. I'm sure this section won't be too long, at least maybe on Thomas's side. So Thunder win 106-149. Man, I mean, you can lead it off, Will.
Yeah, so I actually had the privilege of being at this game. I was up second to last row in the arena, so I could see it all from a very high vantage point. But it was a good game to go to for sure. I think this game is evidence of how good this team is, and I think it makes game 1 and 3 hurt a lot more. Seeing that we can go out, an NBA team should never be able to play against a team like Denver in the playoffs in the second round and just go out and throttle them. That should never happen. But this team is good enough to do it, and they did. I think, and I'm sure I'll talk about this a lot today. I think pace is the name of the game for the Thunder, all the way around. Pace. If we can control the pace of a game fully for 48 minutes, nobody in the league can beat us if we control the pace of the game. And that starts on the defensive side of the ball. And from the get-go, the crowd was into it. The defense was into it, roaming around, flying around the court, swarming Jokic, getting turnovers, getting runouts, and it happens quick. It'll happen quick if we're controlling the pace and getting the stops quickly that we need and running out and getting buckets. And that's what happened. It showed that on a perfect night, this is what we can do. And it was nice. It was very fun. It was a great evening. It's sad. You think too that momentum from game 2 could carry you through a series and give you some momentum to ride on. But it didn't. So we'll see. I think it's going to be helpful though for this team to have that confidence, cautious confidence, to know that hey, we are good enough to beat this Denver team. They never did that. That never happened with Dallas last year. We never went out there and throttled them. When we won against Dallas, it was always scraping by, except for game one. We were scraping by, just grinding it out. So we're good enough to win this series. And game two is evidence of that. But we got a long way to go.
Yeah, Thomas.
Yeah, I think game two shows what it looks like when the much more like athletic team shows up, and that athleticism was apparent both on offense and on defense for the Thunder. I mean, I think we all of us have seen this. The Nuggets are really content with meandering up the court, making sure the ball's across half court about 18 seconds, set up a play, nice, just calm, stagnant. It's walk you down, fighting essentially is what it is. It's my punch is going to be bigger than yours, and that's just going to work over time. And what happened is the Thunder, just like you said, they sped it up. The Nuggets can't win that athleticism battle.
Nope. And that's what we have to get back to. I have a question for you, Thomas. Do you think that game two could have had something to do with fatigue from the previous series finally starting to hit, being on the road that long?
If game three had have been more dictated by that same fatigue, probably. I think the biggest reason for it is they were like, okay, we can just lean into that same Jokic basketball again, which what he wants to do is he wants to make it to the 3-point line, make it to the free throw line, and then find somebody somewhere. And the Thunder weren't going to let that happen again. So I think that was the bigger reason. I wonder if /when fatigue will set in for this team.
Yeah, I
hope soon.
I was looking at it. It's funny that game. Other than the first quarter, Nuggets did not dominate any quarter. Thunder dominated that quarter. I think they won that quarter by 24 points, which is more than the Nuggets scored the entire first quarter. I think that really, I don't want to say broke the Nuggets, but I think they kind of let it feed into the fatigue where maybe the first game, which obviously, I mean, I grew up playing basketball and football. When you start a game, even if you are fatigued, you start out adrenaline pumping, you don't feel it. But as soon as something breaks that, and let's say it's a shitty first quarter, it's halftime, then you start to feel it. You're like, oh shit, oh excuse my language here, it's my show, but we can swear. But you're like, oh, I can't walk. Oh, this guy's a lot stronger than I thought. So I think that first quarter being as bad as it was starting out. I mean, if we look at the stats for the first quarter for these guys, it's not pretty for anybody on Denver's side. And I think because like after that, the highest point differential for a quarter is 7, which is the second quarter. Third quarter was only 3, and the fourth quarter was only 5, going both ways. So I think that first quarter just broke them, and then they started feeling it a lot more. And then going into the next game, it was a lot closer, and they kind of fed off that adrenaline. Obviously, just a theory, but it makes sense in my head.
Yeah, I want to bring up something that Thomas was talking about. He was talking about Jokic, and then Gavin kind of went into it as well with discomfort in the first quarter. I think a big difference that I saw between game one and game two was the evolution and the enhanced minutes of Jalen Williams. That is Jay Lynn Williams, J Will from Arkansas. And he came in and defended Jokic just as well as Hartenstein, if not better. He was physical. He was, giving him a little shove here and there. He was just frustrating him. And it paid off. And I love seeing that from him. Also, I want to go into, you might not like to hear this, Thomas, but being in that arena and watching this game, I know people say things about Shea and free throws, and they can say what they want. But the way that Jokic played that game disgusted me. I'm not even going to lie. He disgusted me, and that was the play that comes to my mind was when him and Jay Will were getting on the court trying to battle for position, right? This was, I think, third quarter. And they're kind of pushing on each other, just being physical. Jokic, Jay Will's kind of bent down over. Jokic jumps up off the ground onto Jay Will's back, flopping, trying to draw a foul. And obviously it gets called on Jokic. That's a dirty play. That is a dirty play in the name of foul baiting, and I just don't like watching that guy play. And I know it sounds petty, but I just want to address it because you hear so much about Shea online. If Jokic drove to the rim as much as Shea did and drew as much contact as Shea, he would get triple the amount of free throws based on the way he flops around the court. That's all I'm going to say about that. And I'm sorry, I know it probably wasn't great to hear. I sound petty, but I have to address it.
I honestly, the thing that I like, what I'm realizing just as I'm watching around the league and different people's reactions to different things, there are very few star players that other teams' fans like watching. I think Curry breaks that mold. Dame in Portland broke that mold. And then maybe some versions of Devin Booker.
I think Giannis also breaks that a little bit based off his character.
Sometimes. But I don't personally enjoy, I respect what Shea is doing. And, watching somebody be as good as Shea is at basketball is fun to watch for me. But I don't enjoy watching Shea basketball. Thunder fans aren't going to enjoy watching Jokic. And, that's just kind of how it is. I don't know. I don't want to sound just so neutral about it, but I feel like there's very few star players that I go out as a Nuggets fan. The Nuggets are getting flambéed by somebody. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, ooh, Paolo, ooh boy. There's not that many star players that I think other teams fans really just
Yeah, I agree with you, and I respect that stance. I agree. I'm not going to go out there and be like, I want to watch this player play. But when I'm watching the Thunder every night play against certain teams, there are players that I respect the way they play, and there are players which I don't respect the way they play, and I don't respect the way Nikola Jokic plays the game of basketball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you?
Oh.
I do have a question on that. Because I love the way Jokic plays. Is it more of just his antics and scoring? Because
I would edit what I said. The way he plays, there's a lot of things that he does well and is impressive. The way he acts,
yeah, that
more the way he approaches basketball and his mannerisms, and that leads to some physically things he does in the court as well.
Thomas, I'm sure you remember this before the transition take foul. Sometimes if he went on a drive and he thought he got fouled, he'd purposely foul to talk to the refs so he didn't have to get back immediately. I just remember watching that, especially in the bubble. He did it a ton in the bubble where he would purposely foul and then just not get back and just start talking to the refs, which now he can't do that. But yeah, he's for how it seems well liked he is because of his personality, or I guess lack thereof. It's surprising that's not talked about more, Will.
I'm trying to think of a reason why. Sorry, there was a weird stagnant pause, but I was trying to think of a reason why. I think it really just comes down to, for some reason, Jokic is visualized as an underdog. I feel like there is still something in there's this weird perception around this lumbering white guy doing these doing these things that I don't know. I think there's something there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's because yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I guess he's seen as this guy who doesn't care about basketball, but just happens to be really, really good. And he's just so lovable because he wants to go to his horses and his family and stuff like that.
I think that also, but I also think the forced hate on Shea by the whole broad NBA community this year has really fueled the Jokic love. I've seen that from multiple friends, in my life who have had no partiality towards Jokic at all before the season. They just hate Thunder and they hate Shea. And so that makes them love Jokic, which, that's natural. So
yeah, you see that a lot with I have a friend. I know he's not watching this, so I'm going to name drop him. My boy Quinn, who is very opinionated about basketball, but does not watch a lick of basketball. He's very TikTok oriented. This entire year, he's like, Jokic is my MVP. Shea's a free throw merchant. And I'm like, and then we sit down and watch a Knicks game, and I'm like, Jalen Brunson is what you think Shea is. Like, it's so funny watching that. And
Thank you.
he does not watch any. Do you not agree with me, Thomas?
No, I hadn't perceived like that was like no, I completely agree. I just had never thought of it that way before, but it's completely right.
But he automatically hates Shea when 2 years ago Shea was everyone's favorite player. Like, Shea was swaggy, he was, well dressed, he was awesome, he was this up and coming stud. But now that he's doing what every great scorer does, which is get to the line, it's not even at a super high eclipse, per play. It's volume wise because he has such a high usage. It's kind of, it's hate culture. You see this in every sport, you see this in everything in life. If something gets too popular, it's going to be popular to hate on it. But with that culture turning towards hating Shea, it's you see the opponent. It's like LeBron and MJ. Obviously not to that level, but if you love MJ, you hate LeBron. If you love LeBron, you hate MJ. So you kind of see that a lot.
Great, yeah. You hit it on the nail right there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else for game 2?
I'm satisfied. I wish I could go relive it and relive it for game 4, 5, 6. So, but I probably won't.
Can I just add just one more thing just on your last comment, Gavin?
Yeah.
That was a trap that I almost found myself falling into a couple of times this season. Was just this idea that as a Nuggets fan, as a Nuggets guy, I had Jokic as MVP. I saw, his contribution to the team versus what the team or lack thereof looked like with him not playing. So I believe, and I believed then and still believe now that he is the MVP. However, dude, Shea is insane.
Yeah.
Like, it is. It's amazing to watch somebody who like Shea just seems so complete. Is like, it's the word, like, if I were to use a word, like, Jokic is dominant, I believe. Shea is more complete. From scoring to defense, just to all the things, Shea does it so well. That it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and I feel like this has become a trend with arguments in general. To me, if you start an argument off with tearing down the opposition, automatic invalid argument. There is a very strong argument for Jokic for MVP. There is a very strong argument for Shea for MVP. Thomas, I'm sorry. If I had a vote, I would have voted Shea. Just following typical graphs, best player, best team, and even deserving. He deserves it, even if that wasn't. You know what I mean? So he's putting up the numbers for it. So yeah, I totally agree with you. But okay.
Hey, Will, by the way, this is your spot to drop in a Jokic compliment if you at any point in time.
I was thinking to myself, he's making me sound really bad right now for the way I was talking about Jokic earlier. But I did say it's more about his antics and his flopping. But yeah, he's a great player, and there's not much more to it. He's a great player.
Mm-hmm.
He gets the job done, and obviously we're down 2-1 to him right now. So
yeah, and you're obviously allowed to not like how. Like, I hate watching Pascal Siakam. I think I've been very Pascal Siakam is one of my I refuse to watch Pacers games sometimes because I watching Pascal Siakam grinds my gears. He's just such a boring player to watch, in my opinion. He's a very good player, and I love Pascal as a person and as an NBA player. I just don't like the way he plays. Anyway, so you're obviously right to have that opinion. Moving on from game 2, it's game 3, happened last night, most fresh on our memories. Will, I will let you start off this one.
Yeah. So, gosh, this game 3 was a journey. I'm sure we can all agree. Felt like that game lasted for 4 hours. It was up, down. Scoring change, lead change, tie. Throughout the game, I'm sure my friends can attest to this, I never really felt like we were going to lose that game. And I think a lot of that has to do with the shots we were forcing Denver to take versus the shots that we were getting. We were creating good shots. And I think going into game 3, I was thinking to myself, I think Denver is going to try to, first off, slow the game down. Like I said, pace is big time. They're going to want to control the pace in their home court, and they did. All night long, They did control the pace. We had our moments, but overall, I thought we were responding to that pace well and playing well at a slower pace. But I think a lot of that had to do with Denver clogging the lane, dropping everybody down, and forcing us to hit open shots. And we did not. We were getting good looks, but sometimes it's dangerous for us on the road because if we're not hitting, we're going to live and die by it. But if they're there, we're always going to take it. And so, yeah, that was frustrating because we were getting good looks. But on the other end, what was almost even more frustrating was our defense was doing its job. First off, once again, Hartenstein and Jay Will played Jokic as well as anyone has all year. They did an excellent job. The help side was there, and we were rotating well. Guys were responding, guys were communicating, playing Thunder defense. We're playing Thunder defense. Weren't getting as many turnovers, but as expected, Denver is not going to come out that flat again. You're not going to go out and beat a team by 40 again. We have to be able to win games where we're not blowing people out. And they were getting back to what was frustrating. They were getting these shots that were heavily contested, and they were just going in. And you think about that's what Denver does, though. Think back to the Lakers. Think back to Lakers and other series all these years. They hit tough shots that normally should never go in, but they go in, and you just got to tip your hat. But you also got to be able to respond on the other end. And like Thomas mentioned earlier, I think the Thunder lost this game personally because of some late game errors, like coaching as well, leaving 2 timeouts left on the board with 10 seconds left in the game. That should never. You got to call a timeout with the ball instead of getting a Shea mid-range fading away heavily contested shot off the backboard with 2 seconds left. That should never happen. We need to drop a play. Our offense is stagnant. The coach, Mark Dagnall, should have something in his pocket for situations like this. And even if he did, he didn't even show it because he I don't know, he was aware he had it. I don't know why he would trust our offense when it hasn't been flowing all game long. But yeah, the Nuggets just hit shots, and we did it. And I think a lot of that has to be holding our star player accountable. And the fact that he did not step up and take over in a game that we needed him to. We needed him to bad. And if he's as good, we know how good Shea is, and there's not a doubt in my mind that he's capable of doing it. But he didn't step up. He didn't take good shots. He was forcing up shots that were not shots that would normally go in for him. And yeah, it just didn't go our way last night. And in overtime, another coaching error. You don't switch it up, start overtime, and go small when we've been going big all game long and stopping Jokic, and then give them a couple easy buckets. You're down 5-7 in a hole, put Chet back in, and then at that point, they got all the momentum. The crowd's into it in overtime, and we're done. So all the way around, coaching again just fell short. Everything fell short. Frustrating when you have this good of a team to lose a game like that.
So I have an interesting point I kind of want to bring in. So Mark Daigneault is, in my opinion, a phenomenal coach. I love Mark Daigneault. He's been head coach of the Thunder for 5 years now?
Gosh, it would have been 5 years.
It's been that. Sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't realize it's been that
his
long.
First year was the bubble, right?
Time flies. I know. Bubble, I think, was
or was he the year after the bubble?
I think year after.
Okay. So do you think so? Looking at game 1, what cost him the game was him doing too much as a coach. He was overthinking it. Do you think the end of this game, he's like, okay, I need to trust my guys. Let me not do, and that it's an experience showing, because if he started after the bubble, that means you guys missed the playoff. Maybe did you barely make it 1 year, and then you made it last year, and then
it was rebuild, and then it was play in. Got to the final game of the play in, lost to Minnesota, and then last year and this year.
Yeah, so he also, along with the team, obviously got to the second round last year. He is not exempt from that playoff inexperience and the playoff nerves and the decisions that a coach should be making. But I wonder if it was like, I did too much last time. Let me do a lot. Let me do nothing this time instead of finding an in between. And he was overthinking it last time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there could be some of that there. Certainly, he did step back too much, I think, last night. But I think, and obviously I'm not going to tell an NBA coach how to do his job. There's a lot more to it that I don't know. Like, I'm not I'm sure there's a lot of valid reasons to why he did what he did last night. And, well, I'm not going to say it for game one. That was ridiculous. But I think he's got to be, from what I can see and from what I can tell, he has to be more reactionary to the game at hand and not. You can't look back at game one for game three. Obviously, if the same situation arose, you should be able to not do that again with the fouling. But other than that, you got to be able to react to the game at hand. And in that game, you can't trust us to get up a good shot without drawing something up. And even we had I can't remember at what point it was late in the fourth. We called a timeout, came out of that timeout, and literally it was just a Shea step back three. Contested. Like, that's not what we drew up. Did we draw anything up? I mean, what were we doing? It's just this team so far has not been built for the late game situations. And I think we're built for it. They haven't been performing in them. So, yeah, I think Mark was just, I don't know, gun shy. I don't know.
If I had told you that, a blind person who only saw the scores and the theme of these games.
Hey, that was me.
That one coach had been hired. What?
I thought you said the person that's only seen the score. That was me for the game 3, but I watched the other 2.
But the series as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
If I had told that person that one team had their coach for 5 years and one team had their coach for 3 games in the regular season, they would get it wrong. Like, if they were to just watch this series, it really feels like they would get this wrong.
I don't agree. I think Mark has been in late game situations subpar, but I think game 2 was an evidence of Mark Dagnall's greatness. I'm not going to...
I agree with both of your takes there. I see where you're coming from because Mark has coached a very, very good game, especially defending Jokic and playing towards the weaknesses of the Nuggets. But the bonehead late game mistakes are inadmissible.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say David Adelman, he looks like Murph from Practical Jokers out there, man. it's funny because
okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's like they told, hey Murph, your punishment, go out there and go out there and coach the Nuggets because I'm sure he's a great coach. I'm just trying.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
yeah. I think so. Okay, I'm going to soapbox you for a minute. First, I'm going to talk about your comment on Game 2. I think Game 2 was just a summation of better roster building. Where the Nuggets can go 7 deep, the Thunder can go 10, and that's just what that game felt like.
7.
It's just
the Nuggets can go 4.5 deep, pal. You're being a little generous.
Do you want to talk? Do we want to go pull back up the Game 3 stat? We can. We can. But no, point being, if it's 4.5, that even better accentuates my point. But I think that Game 2 was better roster building. But here's my soapbox. I'm going to read you guys the headline from the New York Times about last night's game. And then I'm going to go, and then I'm going to ask you a question, okay?
Okay.
So Tony Jones of the New York Times wrote the following headline: Nuggets other guys lift Nikola Jokic for a change in Game 3 overtime win over the Thunder. Based off that headline alone, and how we have talked about how, Jay Will and Hartenstein, clamped Jokic. What's Jokic's stat line? Just on the narratives alone, what is Jokic's stat line?
Okay. As a basketball fan, I know to expect a lot. So, like, a bad Jokic game to me is like 15, 10, and 5. And I think it was something similar to that, actually.
He had 20, 16, and 6.
Yeah.
What are we doing saying he was contained? He got 20 and 16.
But you cannot say that he wasn't contained, because if he
it was a
40,
disappointing
25,
Jokic performance.
13.
I'm not going to sit here and say it was, I'm not going to sit here and say it was like the world-beating performance. But people are acting like he had a Tyrese Halliburton stat line. Tyrese Halliburton had 4 points.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, Jokic also shot 8 for 25 from the field, 0 for 10 from 3.
That's a big part.
We're talking about containing. We're talking about on ball, man-to-man defensive. Jokic is going to do Jokic things. He's going to kick it out to wide open shooter because we're collapsing on him because he's great. Jokic got contained last night on the offensive end based on his one-on-one performances, and anyone watching the game would say that.
and it still didn't matter. That's the biggest thing for me. Is the Nuggets won almost by double digits when Jokic was contained. Like if like people are raising the banner on that being a good defensive performance against Jokic, and we almost won by double digits.
It did matter though. It did matter because we had you on your home court. We had one possession. We were going to win that game. We had the ball. We just didn't drop a good play. We hit a shot there. We won the game. Like, it's not a double-digit win. That's an overtime win where you all outclass us in overtime. That was not a double-digit game. That was the game we should have had. And if we didn't contain Jokic, it wouldn't have been that way. So it didn't matter.
So I see what both of you are saying. Thomas, I think that headline is not really a bash on Jokic. I think it's upbringing of the other guys. I mean, when's the last time you've seen Michael Porter Jr. shoot efficiently? Like genuine. Like, when's the last time you saw him shoot over 35% from three in a game? When's the last time? I mean, Jamal Murray has had a very subpar playoff run so far. He had that one really good game in the first round. But other than that, Jamal Murray is like, all year we've been holding out. Like, he's a playoff riser. Just wait till you get to playoffs. And he's not really risen anything. But yeah, it was, I mean, Jamal Murray 27, Aaron Gordon 22, Michael Porter Jr. 21. Russ had an inefficient 8. But I mean, you see the other guys step up this game in a game that I also agree with Will that the Thunder had right there. It was a very, very close game. The score doesn't paint the whole picture. Granted, it ends up being that, but it's like a extra touchdown in the end at the end of the game that makes it look like a 13-point win when it was just
the last 5.5 minutes of the game. The Thunder scored 2 points.
That's where I also come back to you that the Nuggets. And this comes back to what I was thinking with obviously the fatigue in Denver. You know a lot more than I do, Thomas, with that home court advantage in terms of just being in Denver. That's where I think the adrenaline with the Nuggets of that it was a close game. They stayed in it, and I think that's how they pulled away. Will, I see you shaking your head.
I was just going to say, he was mentioning the 5.5 minutes where we only scored 2 points. I agree that was disastrous, but if we hit a shot at the end of the game, those 5 minutes would never even occurred.
Yeah,
that's true.
But you have to regroup. That like the Nuggets, because the Nuggets had the same opportunity and they messed it up too.
I agree. You have to regroup, but I'm just saying the game was not as big of a blowout as you're making it sound. The Thunder had this game the whole way through. We had control. If you look at the flow chart of the game, it was blue the whole entire way up until those last couple minutes of the fourth.
So this is what happens when you see a lot of these close games. You see that most of the time, I mean, we saw it in, I don't know if you guys watched it, Knicks Celtics, the game before 2 days ago.
One or two?
Game 2.
Okay.
Well, you could say game 1 too. Game 2 was all green up until the last 3 minutes. And then the Knicks pulled out and it went back and forth for a little bit. And then the Knicks ended up winning. It's so interesting to see that, yes, the Thunder should have won that game, but the Nuggets did win. And it sucks for both of you because, Thomas, you don't have a strong argument of why they should have won. Which, yes, it's strong-ish, but it's and Will, you don't really have a strong argument why they shouldn't have won. It's so interesting to see both of your guys' viewpoints on this. Anything else from Game 3?
I am going to make a Thunder bashing comment because, Isaiah Hartenstein being the offensive option 3 times in late game situations is absurd.
100%. No, I agree with you. It should never happen. Shout out to J-Dub in Game 3. I didn't mention that. He stepped up, and that was a big question going into the playoffs. Was he going to be able to step up and help Shea out and be that all-star that he was named as this year? And he did in Game 3, but it just was unfortunate that no one else other than Chet in the first half did.
Yeah, that's a bad sign if you're a Nuggets fan, that J-Dub found the way to get the ball in the basket in the playoffs. So it'll be a really interesting Game 4, which is why I wanted to do this before Game 4 because there's so many question marks going in. Even if the fact that it was a close game, there's so many question marks. All right, anything else for you guys? There's one more thing I want to talk about after we're done discussing Game 3.
I'm good on the first 3.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, it feels like nobody's proven anything. Just like to finish your point, nobody's proven anything. We don't know
Yeah.
anything about either of these teams.
So this I just thought of as we were recording. I'm like, this would be really fun to talk about. Big picture. Okay. I'm gonna ask both of you what you think will happen if they lose the series and if they win the series. Okay. So
First, wait, can we go like a precursor question to that?
yeah,
Like you're talking like grand picture, like if OKC, like you're talking like if the
going into
series
next
would-
season.
Okay, can we go like before that a little bit?
Yeah.
Can we say like Nuggets or Thunder in how many games?
Sure. Okay, so we'll start with Will. Will, tell me the rest of the prediction, and then what you think will happen next season if they lose or win. Because like we can talk about trades, we can talk about roster movement, we can talk about whatever you want. Because Thomas, me and you have had discussions about Nuggets roster movement a lot, and I think I want to shine light onto that. So Will, rest of series, and then season, and then go ahead.
Yeah, I have Thunder in 7. I think this is going to be the series that propels the Thunder into the national spotlight as a championship contender. And if we come out of this series with a win, I think a championship winner. And that is because this is a compliment to Denver. I don't know how many teams that are left that have the toughness and the grit of Denver. And if we can get out of this series with a win, which I think we will, I think it would be huge for the next however long this run goes for us. The reason why I think we're going to come out of it on top is because the team is tough, as they showed in Game 2. They know how to respond to adversity. And I think they're going to find their shooting. I think they're going to find a way to get out of this. They're too good not to. This team is too good to not come out of this. And obviously they could easily not. They could easily, lay more eggs. And then, as you mentioned, Gavin, as you asked, what happens if that happens? And honestly, I haven't given it any thought because I'm not ready to even think about that yet. But let's just pretend for a second and say that does happen. I've seen a lot of jersey swaps with Giannis.
That's what I was going to ask.
I know that's where you're going. I don't think there's a world of Thunder do that.
I don't think so either.
And there's part of me would say it, like part of me always has thought Giannis would be a good Thunder, like just a picturesque like Thunder personality. But with this team right now, it's not worth blowing up. I think we have a lot of consolidating to do though. At some point, you can't bring in 3, 4, 5 players from the draft every single year. You've got to consolidate. But it's just, what does the consolidation look like? Because by consolidating, you're getting rid of or replacing different spots of a guy who's been a core piece of this group, which this group won 68 games. And do you want to do that? I don't know. It's a good place to be in because you have a lot of great options, but it's a scary place to be in because, like with James Harden, this franchise has a natural ability to put itself in a good position. It's just that they have the ability to make the right decision with that position. And in the past, maybe they haven't. And you don't want to make the wrong one and trade like people said about Gideon Caruso. I think that's kind of a stupid discussion at this point. But you don't want to, go trade a J-Dub or a Chet for a Hartenstein or for a Giannis right now because that makes zero sense. But I do think I'm really looking forward to seeing Nikola Topic come in and play in the Summer League. I think people forget a lot about that top 10 talent we have on our roster right now, who's had a whole year of Chet development, Chet S development rookie year. That along with draft picks, who knows? I think there would be a trade if we were to lose. I think there would be a trade to consolidate some of these draft picks. I don't know for what. I don't know for who. I don't know for what we need to fix because this team is just so perfectly built. I don't know what we do, but I don't want to think about it. That's why Thunder 7, baby.
Greg Popovich. You traded for Greg
okay,
Popovich.
I'm gonna force you to think here. Out of the starters, if you had to get rid of one or a package, if you lost, if there had to be a move, because you can't, if you lose, you can't just run it back. With how good this team was. Sam Presti is a lot smarter of a GM than to do that. even if it's just even if it's just around the edges, what move do you think they would make? You know what? Eliminate the
So-
starter question. Just what moves?
Can I ask you, do you think Thunder were right to trade James Harden then?
It's tough. The landscape of the NBA at that was pretty weird. I think trading him to Houston was the wrong thing. I think they could have gotten more. I think they traded him too early. I think eventually trading him to build that team around Russ and KD was the right decision. But I don't think Houston was the right place for him or the right time, which begs the question: is now the right time? You never know. The hindsight's 2020.
I just think you're obviously not going to trade Shea.
Yeah.
Right. And other than Hartenstein and Lou, he's the only, or even Lou's younger than Shea, he's the only sort of ish veteran in that starting lineup. It's just way too premature to trade Chet and J-Dub because we have no clue how good they're going to be in their career because they're so young. I mean, that's what people forget is, and I don't want to sound like I'm coping here because I'm not, because I think we still are very capable of winning the series and winning a championship this season, as the metrics in Vegas shows. But we're still a young team. We're still a very young team with a lot of growing to do. And that's not an excuse at all. But it's true. It's just fact based on ages. So, but if I had to choose, you asked first what moves would I make?
Yeah.
I think a big question that's going to come up eventually is I think a lot has to do once we see Nikola Topic play. But the Casey Wallace question, I think he is very, very good. And I think if he was playing somewhere else or on a rebuilding team, he could be a rising star in this league. I don't want to get rid of Casey Wallace at all. I want him to be on my team forever. But I think that's kind of like a Giddey-esque situation where like he might be smart to use his value at some point. I'm not saying I would ever want that to happen, but that's a question you need to answer. Obviously, it's hard to say I want to trade anybody because I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to choose starters, you keep Shea, you keep Hartenstein, you keep Chet, you keep Dub. Then it's Lou or Hartenstein. Then I don't know. I'd probably lean towards Hartenstein just because of the attachment I have to Lou.
So I agree with you. I feel bad making you pick a starter, but I feel like what this team does need, if they do end up going out here, is just around the edges. If Casey Wallace, if they do have to make a trade, would probably be the most premium name that would get shipped off. I think it's just kind of rebuilding the locker room and just trying to run it back, coughing this up to an unlucky year. Here's a couple improvements because I think you guys have 3 first-round picks this year. A Clippers swap, Miami's first rounder, and then a potential top 7 pick.
Potential Philly.
Yeah, because it's 1 through 6 protected from Philly, but if it could, right now they're projected to get 7 or 8.
I think it's a little higher. I think it's like 4 through 6. I could be wrong. I haven't been focusing on the draft too much yet.
Yeah,
I'm trying to block that from my mind.
But it's a lot of there's a lot of directions OKC can go in, and honestly, like Casey Wallace plus 4 picks of however many could get you a stud. That would just be a technical upgrade, but not as much as drastic as what you're hoping doesn't happen.
Yep. I think there's only good options.
Yeah. So you said Thunder in 7. Thomas, first series prediction, and then oh wait, hold on. Actually, Will, Thunder win here. You said you think they're winning the chip.
That sounds ambitious. Yes, I think so.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I would have to agree with you. I think if they can get past the Nuggets, then the Warriors or Timberwolves might not even get a game. And then the East, whether it's the banged up Celtics that can't seem to score in the clutch, or it's the Cavs.
I think the Wolves kind of scare me. We had trouble from this year. They took some legit games against us.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting series. But I think if we can beat Denver, we can beat Minnesota.
Yeah. And then looking at the East, just a matchup. I mean, the Cavs would be interesting, but I don't think it'd be much. Celtics, I think you'd walk all over them.
Really?
Yeah. The way I've seen the Celtics play this year, at least, especially once the playoffs have started, it has been a whole different team. It looks like before they won the championship, which you would think that going and seeing what it takes to win a championship with the Celtics, they'd stick to that. But they have just reverted. I mean, Jason Tatum is taking terrible clutch step back threes. Jaylen Brown can't attack. Porzingis isn't healthy. Horford looks old. Drew Holiday can't play offense. It's just weird.
Yeah. I think if Boston's in the finals, at that point they'd have it figured out.
That's true.
If they get to that point. So I don't know. I think anyone who comes out of the East, I think it would be two again tough series. But I think this would be, if we could just come out of the series, we'd be so battle tested at that point if we could get out of this mess.
So, Thomas, let me bring it back to you. Series prediction.
Nuggets in 7.
Okay, I could have expected these answers.
I think it just comes down to until the Thunder prove that they can win these close games, I think the Nuggets have that grit that Will was talking about to keep these games close. And again, as long as these games are close, I feel good about our chances to win. I'll be honest, I thought that there would be more moments of, okay, Shea, here is the ball, go put it in there and go beat this team. And until that happens, I feel really good about the Nuggets' chances.
Okay. So then, big picture, rest of the playoffs if they win.
If they win, I think we win the East. I think we win. That'd be something if we won the East. I think we win the West.
Okay.
Because I think it's the same conversation. It's somehow we're having the same conversation here. If we can beat the Thunder, who can't we beat?
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that this is the same exact conversation for both of us, but that's kind of where I'm at.
But the issue with that is you have the two best teams that play the Nuggets the best waiting for you for whoever wins. Draymond is the best defender on Jokic of all time. Funnily enough, I think he makes him average, like just pure statistical.
Jay Will's better.
Statistical wise, I think he holds them to like 14, 8 and 6, which again, we talked about this in the Nuggets segment for the playoffs things. But and then you have Timberwolves, which were built to beat the Nuggets. So I think those games. I'm not saying I don't agree with you because I do think the Nuggets would come out on top if they beat OKC. But I think whoever wins this series wins the West for either of you guys. So I definitely agree.
Yeah, I think I am still like I have like generational trauma in regards to the Timberwolves. The Nuggets have been bested by the Timberwolves in so many different instances that I am still haunted. The Warriors don't scare me, though. I'll be honest. We have won games against them this year without any of our starters. We have beaten fully healthy Warriors teams without Jokic, Murray, or Brown. That was such a good game. We won by like 15. Granted,
True,
it took,
but the Spurs have beaten, or I'm sorry, the Hornets have beaten the Cavs. So
what does Steph Curry look like when he comes back?
that's because he's got
When is Jimmy Butler going to be a productive postseason player again? When is Jonathan Kuminga going to ascend to that next level? When is Pods going to be the challenge of the Pythagorean theorem that it is to 7th grade algebra students? Like,
it's
all hypotheticals. If the Nuggets, if they beat the Thunder, are the proven commodity. The Warriors, by golly, we hope that Steph is somehow back.
I don't see a world in which the Wolves don't win that series, personally.
Against the Warriors or the Nuggets?
Against the Warriors.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, I would agree with you. They just match up really nicely. And
with Steph out till 6 or 7 too. I mean, the Warriors are in trouble.
Yeah.
Which is such a shame.
Yeah. No, it really is.
Yeah.
I wonder. Sorry, the dog's in the background.
You're all good.
Apologize. My curiosity comes in the matchup with the Wolves this year.
Was it split?
Because what?
Did you guys split the series?
I think they won. I think they won the series against us.
Okay.
I think.
I can't.
My curiosity comes in how they defend Jokic. Because, I mean, I mean, there's the really famous clip or the really famous like quote bot like quote card, of Rudy saying I got him, and then Jokic saying brother I have 50. Like it's a really really famous thing. So like we know that Rudy Gobert isn't going to be able to do it on his own. But I wonder what the addition is because like we saw when you put an athletic combo forward, I guess is what I would call J Dub or sorry J Will. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Will, if that's not how you would categorize him.
I mean, that's pretty accurate.
But like when you combine a Hartenstein, like the big with that athletic forward, that's what seems to be the recipe for you to beat Jokic.
Julius Randle's got it, man. Let him get on.
No, Julius Randle does not got it. I think Cat is athletic enough to make it work. That made it work in the last year, last year. But I don't know what it looks like this year without that same presence. Maybe it's Naz Reid.
Yeah, looking
Maybe.
at their
I don't know.
Looking at their matchup here, I was completely wrong. Minnesota swept Denver.
Yeah,
4-0.
because they did well against us. Like I said, our
Jokic had 61 in one of the losses. Jokic averaged 30, 13, and 10, and then 2 steals and a block and a half, which is nuts. But okay, let's not deal with the hypotheticals of the series. You think they win the West? Do you think they win the championship overall?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's fair. I think the Cavs match up really well against the Nuggets. I think the Celtics can match up really well against the Nuggets. But who knows?
I don't know if the Celtics make it out of the second round at this point,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Hey, if y'all beat us, y'all gonna win the chip. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I appreciate it. My bigger concern is the Cavs.
Yeah.
If it's the Pacers, I think we can like. I feel like the Thunder are just the souped up Pacers.
Yeah, with just play style wise.
Yeah, play style and like, hey, we're gonna try to funnel it through, our star and a half, and call it a day. And beat you with depth, which like the Thunder pretend that they or the Pacers rather pretend that they can do that. And then I think we just beat the Knicks.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to who comes out of the East. But
so okay, last question, then I'll let you both get out of here. If the Nuggets lose, which I would like to shed this on you because Thomas and I have talked about this. So I see, from what I see before the playoffs started, the Bucks. So the Bucks, they won the championship the year after, had a disappointing season. The year after, they had a disappointing season. Trade for an aging superstar, for a lot of their depth, with Damian Lillard. Now the Dame's hurt. Their best player is still the best player, but there's a lot of rumors of what this team's going to do. They're old, they're expensive. I see similar patterns with the Nuggets. Nuggets won the championship. Their best player in the world, also European, doesn't have actually anything to do. It's just a fun little quip. They're right now rumored to trade their depth that they don't really have, for an aging superstar. People want to get rid of Michael Porter Jr.'s money, pair him with Julian Strother, pair him with Christian Brown, and call it a day. Go get I don't even know who. But I think there's a lot of similarities with the Bucks and the Nuggets in that sense, that there's a lot of approaches they could do. They could see that the Bucks have Giannis still, and he's still a moneymaker, and they're still technically in contention. But I just wanted to update you with that, Will, because I think that's just a really interesting comparison. Thomas, what do you think they do if they lose?
I think this series has changed the calculus. I think going into the series, I think the general perception was like the Nuggets don't have the depth and greater general firepower to stand up to the behemoths of the league. But I think that perception has changed, and one of the things that always made me just irate with Michael Malone was his unwillingness to play rookies. It took Christian Brown being a superhero for him to become the 7th option. So I think this playoff run so far has really changed my thought process on it. I think I want to give this new regime a chance, because that's something that people forget. Like, people don't realize this is a whole new regime. Like, it kind of got overshadowed by the fact that we're, up on the Thunder. But like this is an entirely new regime that has an entirely different calculus on how they're going to hopefully run a team. We started with, this thing started with Tim Connolly and an amazing, amazing general manager who had the vision for a great team. And then it shifted to Calvin Booth, who didn't. And now I don't know what this looks like going forward. But I see enough pieces that I am still encouraged. Because I mean, I look at what I would consider to be the major gaps the major gaps that the Nuggets have right now, right? Is a backup center, right? I think that would be the biggest thing. And then just, greater depth in general. I think we now see that there is a coach that is willing to play his younger players. Like Peyton Watson's, ascension this season has been amazing. So, I mean, that gives me confidence that we're at least 7 deep, plus praying, DaRon Holmes. DaRon Holmes is one of those pieces that I think is going to define the next few years of the Nuggets, which is an insane comment to put on a current rookie who hasn't even he hasn't touched an NBA basketball yet. But if we can get productive non-Jokic minutes and the team can go, at that point it's 8 deep, and then who knows what it looks like after that. This team is still fully set to keep going here, because Murray shows up in the big games. Christian Braun has ascended in a different year with different circumstances. He's most improved. Michael Porter Jr., half of Denver wants him dead. Half of Denver wants him made the mayor. I don't know, man. Aaron Gordon. I mean, I think the ascension of Aaron Gordon has been amazing, both this playoffs and towards the end of the year.
Yeah. He's got too much value playing with Jokic that no other team will trade the price that he's worth on the Nuggets.
And then you have Jokic, who is, the best player on earth.
Yeah. So, interesting outlook there. Best of luck to both of your respective teams. I'm not going to give my series prediction because I don't want to offend one of you. I'm just going to go.
Give it. Let's hear it.
Let's hear it. Let's see. I know what your prediction. I bet I can guess what your prediction is here.
If I had to put money on it, I'd bet on the Thunder. Just because they are the better team. But based off my gut, I want to say the Nuggets, just because I've always been a believer in the series formula of this might be hard to hear, Will. The better player in the series has a better chance of winning, in my opinion. Jokic is better than Shea, as just a basketball player, as a hub, as how they use him. Now, it's tough to predict going into the series. I thought it was Thunder in 5. That was my initial series prediction. Obviously, that's not good.
Mine was Thunder in 7.
So I will give my official prediction with Thunder in 7. I do think the Thunder will pull it out, just because I do think they're the better team, and I think we have yet to see the real fatigue kick in for the Nuggets. So, sorry, Thomas. I love the Nuggets. But I do have optimism, like you said, with this regime. If they can get a couple depth pieces, and maybe it's trading Michael Porter Jr. for 3 real guys.
Maybe.
Who knows? So I don't know.
The only question becomes is then how do you replace that?
No one's doing that.
The other thing is the wildest report that came out is so the ownership in Colorado as a whole is very, very conflicted. If you want, go look at anything related to Denver and their relationship with the great outside of the Broncos. We don't like any of the ownership groups, whether it's the Cronkies or the Monforts. They won't trade Michael Porter Jr. because he went to the same college as some of the Cronkies. Because he is a Mizzou guy, and at least one of the people in the Cronkies is a Mizzou guy. Michael Porter Jr. is sticking around. So.
Interesting. Well, like I said, best of luck to both of you. Any closing remarks from either of you?
We're going to see how tough this team is once again. We'll see.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah, whether or not, it comes down to I think the grit of the Nuggets. Can the Nuggets keep it close?
Mhm.
If it's close going into these fourth quarters, I like our chances.
If we close out a close game in 4 or 5, I'm gonna feel good. If we just get one, pull out one close one, man, I'm gonna feel real good. Not real good, just somewhat good.
All right. Thank you, both of you. And I'll see you next time.
All right, see you.